What's up, guys? Keyshawn Uchiha here, back at you with another new Alternate Universe What If video. Now, this will be an 18x Alternate Universe video. Now, this will be pretty much, well, I should probably give out the wording. Now, wording. This will contain sex, gore, and extra details, much tough language, and possibly more gore guts, kidnapping, and possibly extra sex. If you're young, if you're a kid, if you can't handle this, I recommend getting the fuck out the kitchen because I'm cooking up something spicy. But other than new, let's get this started. Now, what is this what if gonna be? Well, pretty much like I said through the broadcast and everybody talking stuff, this will be what if pretty much Deku was in a young dairy school or a young dairy world, or we're gonna pretty much be putting this what if Deku had a passive quirk as a young dairy passive quirk. And pretty much have to be byakugan. So we're gonna kind of put a two what ifs mixed together. So shout out to those people who gave me this idea, and let's see how would this go. So how would this work? How will he have the byakugan and also have this passive young dairy quirk, which can make any girl turn into a young dairy for him and pretty much murder any woman in his way, and pretty much they will give their body and soul for him. Well, let's just find out. So pretty much we start off with Deku. Now, Deku is pretty much being born. Now, as he's being born, he's pretty much born with a passive quirk and also born with Byakugan. Now, when the doctors take out Deku, Deku is pretty much opening up his eyes. And the female doctor pretty much says it's a baby boy and pretty much starts to get hypnotized. Or you could say starts to turn into a young dairy. So he already turns a victim into a young dairy in a young age. And it's a young female doctor, you could say. Now, this is where she's pretty much holding it, and her eyes start turning into, we're gonna say, a little bit of a heart, and the heart will be by the side of the eye, which that person will be as we're gonna say as the patient of an affected young dairy, or pretty much permanently as a young dairy for Deku. Now, as that happened, this is where Inko's pretty much saying, "Let me see my baby," which pretty much the female doctor says, "Oh, of course it gives her Deku." Now, Inko begins to look at her child, and Deku pretty much eyes is unique because, like I said, he has the byakugan, so he's gonna have a Hyuga eyes set. Whew. Sorry, let me continue. But pretty much, as that happened, she pretty much says, "This is my baby boy." Now we're gonna do a couple years. Now Deku will be about 5, yeah, 5 years old, and pretty much with Bakugo. Now Bakugo is pretty much his best friend, and pretty much you could say a good friend of him because Deku pretty much has a unique eyes, as they think this is his quirk to see where people at and stuff, because Deku is pretty much gifted with the Byakugan as, and he will find something to use the Hyuga's movesets, but right now he's just going to pretty much have the Byakugan. Now, pretty much can find anyone he can find. He can find anyone with the Byakugan, and he's pretty much good at hide and seek and stuff. And Bakugo says, "I envy you, Deku," which Deku says, "What do you mean, Kashan?" Which Bakugo says, "Well, pretty much you already have an active quirk, and it's your eyes. You can pretty much see where we at, and you can tell who's that far or not far." Which pretty much Deku's saying, Now this is where, of course, we're gonna do another year, and this is where Bakugo gets his. Well, we're gonna say a couple weeks, and Bakugo gets his quirk. This is where Bakugo gets a little cocky, and a little bit more, like, yeah, cocky, like having the Vegeta vibe, cocky, and begins to say he's better than Deku and stuff because he has an explosion quirk, which Deku doesn't care about his cockiness and still becomes his friend, still be his friend. Now, of course, this is where a certain female is watching Deku, or pretty much looking at Deku at afar, and it's the female doctor that been pretty much like I said, already been known the effect of the young dairy thing. So pretty much she's saying, "Oh my little Deku, I can't wait for you to get older." Which Deku kind of sense someone's watching him, but he doesn't mind pay. Well, doesn't mind paying attention. Don't pay attention to it. Uh, we're gonna say another year, and we're gonna say he's 7. Nah, make it 9. Pretty much still in preschool, if I'm correct. Preschool or sorry about that. Had to do my research. Pretty much he's in the 4th grade right now. And this is where he pretty much is adored by the girls. Now, he thinks, and Bakugo is a little bit jealous of Deku, but he's not too jealous because regularly he doesn't care. But this is where he is adored by the girls. Now, not adored by the girls because he's good looking. Well, I ain't saying he's not bad, but pretty much he's adored by the girls and they constantly fawn over him because he pretty much accidentally doesn't know that he affected them or pretty much got them like sealed the lock on him because he pretty much activated his his pretty much his young dairy quirk is pretty much a pacifist quirk, so it pretty much activate on its own. It's activate all the time, so he can't really get it to stop. And yes, it'd be affected some to some boys, but it's not as like it's not as like that. Okay, but pretty much let's continue. We're gonna say now he's 14. 14. I think like the sex limit for you to have sex in Japan is like 14, if I'm correct. Uh, I think. Shit, let's just do 15 just in case. Not 14. But yeah, this is where he's in the ninth, no, the 8th grade in middle school now. Yeah, so this is 14 Deku in the 8th grade. So this is the start and the ending now. Now this is where Deku is pretty much adored by all the girls in the classroom, pretty much. And Deku has a different hairstyle. He kind of grew his hair out more, and kind of has his eyes covering up, and his hair is a little bit longer. Now the girls are pretty much fawning over Deku and stuff because the girls who's already affected pretty much followed him, and sometimes Deku had to switch schools because some girls was abusing other girls, like let's say being like trying to kill another girl or just damn right trying to like get the girl out, so they can only you could say you could say be those certain girls that be with Deku. As the girls who's not affected by Deku and try to say hi to him or say hi to him and stuff, the girls who are affected will work together to get rid of that girl and to only be with him. You could say so. It's like that. Now Deku can command these girls like you could say to do whatever he wants with the girls. Like you could say to torture them, to have sex with them. He can do whatever he wants because he has full control over them. He just doesn't know it yet. Now, whew, pretty much Deku is pretty much getting adored by all the girls, which Deku pretty much doesn't show his eyes unless he's, about to fight someone or about to activate his byakugan. Now, pretty much Bakugo is pretty much saying, here goes these damn girls again, bugging, bugging Deku, which Deku tells the girls to quiet down, be quiet. He lets them all eat with him and to be with him, which all the girls are, the girls who affected is deciding and saying, you really let us do that? Which Deku says, yes, of course. Which Bakugo says, which Bakugo pretty much looks at Deku and pretty much gives him a week saying, thank you for shutting him up. Now, this is where, of course, the teacher comes in, and this teacher is pretty much yeah, the teacher is pretty much a female, and she looks at Deku because she already got affected by Deku, and pretty much starts to get a little bit wet, you could say, wet of the Gear stare, and it's the young Dairy stare, so pretty much she's already affected. But Deku just think that you know the teacher just likes him because he's a good student and all that, but really he's really not. Like Deku is like how can I say, he's like Bakugo, but not as a douchebag, but as he'll use whatever means necessary to get what he wants, or the push by the side. As he's intelligent, extremely intelligent, but he doesn't care unless it doesn't benefit him. So that's why I wanted him to have that kind of passive quirk in the byakugan, because he's gonna be like Neji, but kind of as I'm gifted, but I want to figure out how to get even more stronger and how to unlock my potential, kind of way. Now, of course, this is where the teacher is looking back down, and she begins to say, "So, a lot of y'all want to be heroes," and she begins to say, "What am I getting? All y'all want to be heroes, and everybody's getting excited stuff." Now, this is where she looks and she says, "Oh, only two people wants to go to UA High, Byak, uh, Bakugo and Deku." Which every student looks at Deku stuff, and they're pretty much saying, "Yeah, Deku is gifted. Like he does have a unique quirk to this stuff, and plus he is powerful." But they also question like, "But how would he use his quirk? Because he regularly don't be doing nothing else." Which Deku pretty much looks down and pretty much says, "These idiots." Which Baku is saying, "These guys." And he pretty much says, "Hey, everybody stop looking at Deku." Which Bakugo begins to start to defend Deku and saying that he might have, you know, eyes that can tell where you at and stuff, but he might have other purposes. Which this is where Deku pretty much looks up and says, "And here goes Bakugo trying to defend me again," which he's saying at his head. Now, of course, as everybody's about to go and stuff and leave, Bakugo pretty much says that he's gonna go a little bit head off early and go to the store. Which this is where Deku says, "All right, he see him later," and gets a call from the principal, and it's a female principal, and which Deku goes in the principal office. Now, this is where the principal pretty much says, "Deku, so I heard you was going to UA High. Is there anything I could do for you to get a guaranteed?" Which Deku pretty much is thinking and saying, "I don't know. Can you actually give me a guarantee just in case if this doesn't work out?" Which she begins to say, "Well, of course." And she begins to get close to Deku and have him sit down. Now, this is going to be 18 part, extra detail. Like, for all the sex scenes, this will be extra all detail, so this is the last warning. So be prepared. Whew. This is where the principal lays him on, well, puts him on has him be on the seat, and begins to unzip down his pants. Now, this is where Deku begins to say, "Now, what you do as if I don't get a guaranteed? Are you sure I'm going to get a guarantee to be in the UA if I let you do this?" Which, pretty much, she's saying, "Of course." Which Deku grabs her hair and pretty much holds her hair up, which she's holding her. She's pretty much saying, well, yeah. Deku pretty much grabs her hair and pretty much is holding it tight, saying, "You better not be lying to me." Which she begins to get even wetter because, like I said, when someone's pretty much caught by the stare of Deku, they're pretty much like, if Deku, let's say, if Deku touches them, abuse them, or just do anything, you could say, it couldn't be kind to them or be heartless to them, they will get heightened up. As their senses will be heightened up, they will get more wetter, they will be more, active to do anything for Deku, as they will want to do it even more with Deku. Like, they want to have his children and stuff, you could say. So, this is more like a kink to her than abuse or anything. So, pretty much, as Deku was lifting her up and, well, not lifting her up, but grabbing her hair and saying, "You better not be lying to me," which she pretty much gets you more wet and says, "I would never lie to you." And pretty much, Deku says, "Then go ahead, do as you please." And she begins to unbuckle his unbuckle his pants with her hands. But this is where Deku says, "No, I want you to do it with your teeth." Which this is where she starts to do it with her teeth, gets even more turned on. Now, this is where, of course, she's giving him the sloppy toppy 9000. Now, I'm not saying the worst head, but pretty much the cleanest head you can ever do it. Now, this is where, of course, Deku done nuts in the sauce and nuts in her mouth, which she pretty much gobbled that up like a goblin. Now, I'm not saying that's like the most craziest way, but she pretty much gobbled it up like a goblin. Now, of course, this is where Deku pretty much is about to unzip his pants and about to go until she pretty much say that you forgot about forgot for the dessert. It begins to pull down her panties and pretty much offer up her you could say pussy. Now, as she offer up pussy, pretty much Deku pretty much says, of course I can't forget about the dessert, and begins to hit it from the back, you could say. Now as he's hitting it from the back, he begins to say, I'm gonna do it in your butt. Nah, we're gonna say it in the ass because, like I said, no hesitation. Pretty much, he said he's gonna do it in the ass. Now, as she's pretty much saying, no, she haven't did it before in the ass, which he's pretty much saying I get to do what I want and smacks her ass, which she pretty much starts coming, you could say, and he begins to stick his penis in the ass. Now he begins to go in and out and stuff, and she begins to moan, which I'm gonna say the teacher who, like I said, is younger, it begins to get hard too and start to get wet. Like I said, it's a radius, so it's effects. Now, this is where, of course, the teacher is playing with herself outside the door, which Deku's pretty much doing it. This is where he done nuts in the butt, and done nuts in the butt, but pretty much nuts in the butt, and pretty much starts to yeah, start to say, whew. Now this is where the teacher, of course, I mean the principal, begins to start sucking him off and cleaning his penis, and he begins to sip himself up and begins to say he's going to be going now. Which he pretty much look at her and says, "Do not forget what you promised me." Which, of course, she says, "Of course," and he begins to start leaving. As he's leaving, this is where he sees the teacher, and she pretty much looks away. Which Deku starts to smile and walks away. Now, as he's walking away, he begins to wrap his hair back in a ponytail and begins to start heading forward in the bridge. Now, as he's going to the bridge, he begins to sense a small amount of chakra. We're gonna say, actually no, these byakugan gonna be quite different as they can sense chakra, but it's not as chakra as they can sense like energy, like yeah. Actually, we're gonna say chakra points. Like they can sense chakra, but no one can use chakra but Deku. So yeah, and no, he can't perform jutsus like fireball and something like that. No, he can only perform only Hyuga techniques and stuff. And yeah, he can walk on walls. We're gonna give him that ability too, and walk on water. Those are the only two I'm gonna give him. Nothing else. Yeah, pretty much as Deku's walking on the bridge and stuff, taking the shortcut. This is where a sledgehammer start coming, but Deku's already prepared, and he begins to say, "I guess I better test out this technique that I found." And he pretty much put in he put yeah he pretty much be in the formation position of like the Hyuga formation, the defense. I think the Toro one, I forgot what's it called, but pretty much he puts his stance like that, and the sledgeman is saying, "Your body's mine, kid," and he pretty much does the rotation. It pretty much sends the sludge villain flying into the wall, splat. Now, of course, Deku pretty much smiles and says, "Huh, so it does work. So I do have the requirements to do all these techniques that I learned." Now, of course, this is where All Might comes in and pretty much gets the sludge villain because we're gonna say Deku knock him out in a one go, and All Might pretty much appears and he says, "What can I say? Mm, yeah, mm, female All Might or All Might? Mm, yeah, female All Might. This is where female All Might comes in, and actually no, this is where male All Might comes in. A male All Might comes in and pretty much says, I am here," which, Deku says, "Oh, hey, it's All Might," which Deku is a big fan of All Might, but not as, a sighted freak over and like fangirl All Might. This is more like a cool, calming type, which he says, All Might, you're here, cool. Which All Might said, "Oh, I see, a fan," which Deku says, "Yeah, can I get an autograph?" which All Might, gives him autograph and stuff. And All Might asks what he did, which he said, oh, he pretty much did a technique and knocked the Sludge Villain away from him, which All Might says impressive. He pretty much grabs the bottle and starts to, starts to head off. But this is where Deku grabs him. We're gonna say in the anime he grabs him. Now, of course, this is where Deku falls back down, and pretty much gets up. And he looks at All Might and says, "Are you All Might?" Which we're talking about Small Might now. And Small Might says, "Yeah, it's me," and pretty much explains what happened and stuff. But this is where Deku explains to All Might and asks him, can he become a hero with this ability he has, with these techniques? Can he actually become a hero, like a certified hero? Which All Might says, yes, he think he can become a hero. Actually, he think he can be qualified to become a hero. Which Deku smiles and says, "All right." And he begins to start thinking All Might, but he begins to see the moon and say he think he might can fix it. Which All Might says, "Don't kid yourself, kid. No one can fix this, according to the doctor." Which this is where Deku begins to touch the moon, and he begins to. We're gonna say the moon is kind of has built up messed up chakra points. So Deku begins to start touching it, and he begins to start to fix the chakra points, so the moon can heal up perfectly normal, and he doesn't have to be going to have a time limit and stuff. So this is where All Might begins to screaming in pain until Deku says, "All right, done." Now this is where All Might begins to realize that he can transform back into All Might and transform back to All Might, but not as his original prime, but like similar as All Might. And he begins to start saying, "Wow, kid, you actually fixed it." Which Deku says, "Huh, I didn't know if I could fix it, but I fixed it." Now this is where Deku begins to start heading back down, start going downstairs, and he begins to see explosions and stuff happening. He begins to see Bakugo screaming for help, which he pretty much saying, "Oh no, this is my fault. I should not have grabbed on to All Might when he had the Sludge Villain." Now this is where, of course, Bakugo is reaching out to Deku, which Deku begins to see activate his byakugan a little bit farther. He sees he sees that uh the Sludge Villain only has one chakra point, and it's his heart. Now this is where Deku runs, and he pretty much dodges the Sludge Villain's attacks and stuff, and he begins to runs, and he points out his finger, or uses 2-point fingers and point at the Sludge Villain's heart, pretty much, and he points at it. Well, pretty much, yeah, pretty much cuts off the chakra point, and it pretty much kills the Sludge Villain. And this is where the Sludge Villain starts to go flat and stuff, and everybody's saying and start chilling and saying, "Wow, that's amazing" and stuff. And this is where everybody's I keep saying my bad, but pretty much the people are cheering and stuff, and All Might saw the potential in Deku and begin to say, "How did he defeat that villain in one go?" Which Deku pretty much just killed the villain. But everybody's talking to Bakugo, saying, "Wow, that's amazing, quirk. You should be sponsored by me and stuff when you become a professional hero and stuff." Which Deku pretty much leaves because he doesn't care about the cameras and all that. Now, this is where Deku is walking home and stuff. And this is where Bakugo stops Deku and says that he thanks him for saving his life right there. But next time he's going to not be in that same situation, which Deku says, "You you got it." And pretty much starts heading home. Now, this is where All Might stops Deku and asks him, will he be his successor? Which Deku looks and says, "Yeah." Which all right, sorry, I'm back, but let's continue. Pretty much All Might asks Deku to become the next successor for One for All. Now, of course, Deku says accepts it and begins to meet All Might at the beach, which All Might tells him to meet him at the beach for him to get prepared to accept it. Now, of course, Deku goes home and pretty much excited, which his mother is pretty much is saying welcome home, sweetheart, and pretty much runs in and hugs Deku. Now, Inko is pretty much in shape, as she's in. You could say she's banging. You could say she's hot. Now, this is where she's hugging him and pretty much have her boobs in his face, pretty much, giving him additional love and all that extra treatment because she's under effect too. But Deku's pretty much saying, "Thanks, mom," which he's pretty much tells her news that he's becoming the successor uh of All Might, which he's gonna meet him at the beach tomorrow for 2 weeks straight. Which Inko is excited for her son and saying, "Oh, I'm proud of you." Which she's saying, "Well, I already prepared, cooked up your favorite meal," which Deku says, "Thanks, mom," and they pretty much have a meal that night. Now, the next day, Deku pretty much heads up to the beach and pretty much is sees All Might pretty much, talks to him and stuff, and pretty much gets him prepared to, yeah, gets him prepared to clean the beach and stuff, and telling him that he has to do all this stuff. All right, sorry, I'm back, but yeah, pretty much, All Might uh begins to tell Deku that he has to clean up the bleach, pretty much lift up all the heavy stuff, and we're gonna make it like not like small scraps, it's like big stuff. So we're gonna make Deku a little bit more stronger. So Deku pretty much, starts for the first week. He begins to start taking out the medium stuff, and then and we're gonna say in the next week, but half of that next week, he begins to take out the other stuff. Now at the final week, he begins to do the big stuff and begins to start doing push-ups and stuff and does the rest. And he finally develops his muscles more, and he gets stronger. Now this is where All Might is pretty much impressed and you know pretty much proud and says, "You did a good job, uh, young Midoriya. You pretty much did my expectation. You worthy to receive my quirk." Now this is where he pretty much takes out one of the pieces of his hairs and says, "Here you go." Which Deku says, "What am I supposed to do with it?" Well, he pretty much says, "You have to eat it to get passed on," which Deku begins to think and says, "Hmm, pretty odd, but okay." And pretty much eats his hair. Now, this is where All Might pretty much says, "Now let it just adjust itself, and we're gonna see what you can do." Now, due to Deku eating that quirk, eating All Might's quirk, you could say passed on quirk, he begins to have his passive quirk, the Young Dairy quirk, gets, maxed out as it gets a mutation as now it affects everything. I'm not saying like buildings and stuff like that. I'm saying as it affects animals, bugs, and females and guys. All like. Including things, yeah, you could things like that. And it affects everything, you could say. Now, of course, this is where and we're gonna say plants too. What the hell? Plants we're gonna say plants too, so yeah, it affects plants too and life. Now, of course, this is where Deku doesn't know at the time, but pretty much it affects, you could say. Now, Deku pretty much saying, "Okay, is it ready?" And which All Might says, "Alright, now trying to do a Destroy Smash." Now, this is where Deku does a Destroy Smash, and he pretty much does, we're gonna say, like, like, let's make it 5. Let's make it busted. 5%. And he used 5%. And he pretty much destroys the crater, makes a crater in the sand thing, which All Might saying, "What? 5%? I'm impressed." Which Deku realized his hand is not fractured or broken, which All Might saying, look like you can use 5%. Alright. Which Deku says, "Okay, well, I'm going to be getting ready for the entrance in him," which All Might says, "Do your best, young Midoriya," which Deku says, "Yeah." Now, next day, Deku gets straight, and he pretty much is getting dressed and starts heading. Now, he pretty much ties his hair in a knot and begins to start going. Now, as he's going, um, his mom pretty much hugs him and pretty much tells him to good luck and kiss him on the forehead and have him going. Now, as he's going, he pretty much is meets with Bakugo and they pretty much start talking to each other and having a conversation. Now, as they're having a conversation with each other, this is where Deku almost falls, but pretty much we're gonna say a dog. We're gonna say a dog comes in and pretty much stops Deku from falling all the way and pretty much protects him from hitting the ground. Now this is where Deku pretty much uh gets gets himself, well, thanks to the dog, and pretty much pats the dog in the head, which the dog pretty much starts licking Deku and begins to you could say follow Deku, which Deku says is fine. He's just gonna go away, I think. Which the dog more likely stops at the door and waits for Deku. Now Bakugo thinks that's a little weird, but they continue on. Now, as they continue on, this is where Bakugo and Deku begins to start talking to each other at the thing, which this is where Idan, if I'm correct, begins to tell him can they stop talking, which Deku looks at him and pretty much does a smile, which Idan begins to start blushing and looks away, which Deku says they be quiet, which he pretty much does a little stutter and says thank you. Now Bakugo especially looking up with a wide eyebrow. Now Bakugo's not affected by it because Bakugo is Deku's childhood friend, and it just wouldn't work because it just won't work. I'm just gonna make it not work. Now, as Bakugo pretty much is, as Bakugo pretty much is getting wide blood, he doesn't care, and it begins to start listening to the thing. Now, as all the tests is happening, Deku pretty much passes with the Q&A thing 100% because he's a genius. With the weight thing, second, second or third. Now, for the robots thing, every girl is kind of circling around Deku, and we're gonna say we're gonna say boys too, circle around Deku and pretty much trying to know Deku and not listening to the teacher, which Deku tells them, can they please listen to the teacher, and he would try to talk to them later, which they all agree and says yeah. Now, of course, this is where he explains to destroy the robots and to get points and stuff, and he begins to say every mark set go, and everybody start going. Now, as everybody start going, this is where Deku start running like we're gonna say doing a ninja run, and start destroying robots left or right with his pure fist, because we're gonna say he did some fist training and stuff, and start destroying robots left or right and all that stuff. Now, this is where he thinks he had enough destroying robots, and he about to go until he hears a girl call out for help. Now, this is where he sees her, and he realizes that she's about to get stepped by the robot. Now, this is where he does a jump, and he begins to run up. Actually, no, this is where he runs up the wall and he jumps forward. This is where he does an air pump technique. We're gonna do a Hyuga air pump technique, but he says air pump technique, and he blows a big gush of air with the one for all quirk, and pretty much destroys the 0 point robot head and sends it flying, which 0 point robot explodes. Now, this is where he gets a rocket out and asks if she's okay, which she begins to does a little blush, a tight blush, and says she's alright, and she thanks him for saving her, which he pretty much says anytime, and he begins to start going, which the nurse begins to look at Deku, and she runs up and asks if he's alright and stuff, and pretty much checking if he's alright and seeing if he's hurt, and she say a little, you could say a disrespectful thing to a Rocket, says if it wasn't for her, you wouldn't have to sacrifice yourself to save her, which Deku says it's alright, and he begins to start going. Now, next day, Deku pretty much gets the letter saying he's accepted into UA High, which he smiles. And that is part 1 of What If Deku Had a Yandere passive quirk and the byakugans. If you like, leave a like, comment down below. This would be an 18 plus. I would not age resistant, but shouts out to the subscribers who asked for this idea, and I kind of combined it as one. And also, if you want your what if ideas to be out there, please go to my channel, go to the what if idea thing, and put your ideas there, and I will look it up. All right. But I'm Keisha Chia. Thanks for watching, and peace out. Oh, and don't forget about my podcast. I'm about to be posting up. Yes, sir.
like you lost another one.